Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking, if you couldn't tell by the title, about indoor track. Wonderful time. Now, initially I was going to cut this video into two parts, but I decided it all worked better together anyways. Besides, I had some other stories to tell that relate to indoor track that I wouldn't want to group in this video, although you can be the judge of that. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, dude. You know how most people hate running in some sports, they even did it for punishment? Well, I did that shit for fun. In fact, I still would if my Achilles wasn't injured. By the way, that reminds me of a story of how anime got me to try to run a marathon. But that's not what this is about. I'll post that video at a later date. Right now, we're talking about indoor track, baby. Now, I'm not saying that my sport was other people's punishments just to flex. It could be quite painful at times, to be entirely clear. Side note, that doesn't mean it wasn't fun. I wouldn't have run all 4 years of high school if some parts weren't fun. But I feel like in order to do cross country, indoor track, and outdoor track all throughout the year, it's kind of like dark chocolate. You have milk chocolate, which is what most people vibe with at a young age, and then you have white chocolate, which I don't know why you'd eat. I mean, why would you do that to yourself? And lastly, dark chocolate, which when you first try it, can be kind of icky, but the more you try it, the more you come to love it. I mean, or it's just like drugs. Anyways, today we're going to be talking a little bit about my track and field experience throughout high school, specifically indoor track for this video. I'll probably make other videos on cross country and outdoor track and field, but for now, you're stuck with this. You're stuck here with me. Don't try to leave, 'cause I'll find you. Anyways, now I could flex and say that I was on the varsity team in my high school and I was the captain. That would technically be true, but no, no, no. That, my friend, that would be lying by omission. You see, when you hear all that, you must think, wow, he must have been a really good runner. But no, sir, or sirette, or other. We're progressive over here. Chef, don't judge. I went to a small school, and the thing about going to a fairly small school is that it's not hard to stand out. So, yes, while I was on the varsity team, I mean, most people were, and while I was a captain, I was not the only one. Most seniors became captains. In fact, if I'm remembering correctly, one year the team was so small that we had some juniors running for captains on the girls' side of the team. Okay, let's talk a little bit about my first experience. So, I joined the indoor track team in my first year of high school when I was a freshman, and at first I wanted to be a sprinter. I barely knew anyone on the team at that time, so I wasn't very confident. And in fact, I felt like I was a little bit of a chunker, so I didn't want to do too much running. I know, ironic, right? But so distance was definitely out of the question. Never doing distance, never, ever, ever. And but like contrary to what I said a few seconds ago, I actually wanted to do some running, and otherwise I wouldn't have joined the damn team. So sprinting it was. So my first day, I remember the sprinters were doing a hard workout or something where they kind of build stamina for sprinting or something. I don't really remember what the workout was, but point is, I'm like, yeah, the people in the movies run a lot, so why can't I? That because that makes sense. 15 minutes later, I'm slumped on the floor, absolutely sweating my balls off, and I'm pretty sure this is what a heart attack feels like. I must have looked absolutely terrible because I remember a senior came over and was like, dude, are you alright? Spoiler alert, I was not. My lungs were saying bruh, my legs were saying bruh, and most importantly, I was saying bruh. After about 5 minutes of rest, I got up and kept running. I mean, what can you do? You're on the track team now. Now, for some of you, this might not seem like a big deal. For some, it might. I don't know. But for someone who had never run before, well, I had run, but like not intensely. It was kind of a bruh moment, to be entirely honest. Now, skip to a day later, and we have another practice. Now, I did lie a little bit earlier. There was someone I knew on the team. My homie Scott. Shout out to you if you're watching this. Scott was a big distance guy, and I was like, okay, you know what? Sprinting was kind of horrible, Distance cannot be much worse, Scott's on distance, so it should be fun, but how wrong I was. Distance is more painful than sprinting, I must say. So let me get this straight. You're saying distance is worse than sprinting? Yep. And you realized this early on? Yeah. Yet you decided to keep doing distance over sprinting? Yes, sir. You're a fucking idiot. Facts. Now, to be honest, both sprinting and distance have their ups and downs, but not to get political. But I feel like distance in particular is kind of like dark chocolate. Or it's kind of like, okay, no, we're not making another dark chocolate analogy. All I'm saying is that at the end of the day, it's kind of distance people who can hold their own in not only the 2 mile, 800, my baby, 600, 400, and sprinting races. Now, we did some sprinting workouts as well. On a little tangent, I could talk about fitness in general and how it's important to incorporate speed, endurance, and stamina into your workouts if you're going for cardio, but that'd be a little off topic. Point is, distance is hard, man. I mean, nowhere else are you going to find a breed of runner whose coaches put them in the 2 mile race, 300-meter race, and 4x400-meter relay all in one meet, sometimes back to back with each other. I mean, goddamn, my coaches had no chill. And I'm not exaggerating there. That happened to me multiple times. That happened to my friends multiple times. Okay, for those of you who don't know, the world of track, I like to separate into three kinds of worlds. And I like to think that most people do this. I don't know. I could be wrong. Anyways, it's relatively subjective. You have the 300-meter dash and below, which is basically sprints. You have the world of sprinting. Maybe the 400, but I'd say you could group the 400 with the 600 to 1,000-meter races, which are all middle distance. And then anything above that being basically the mile and 2 mile, like 1,200 if you want to get fancy, are their distance events. Now, not to flex or anything, but people often said the 400, 600, 800-meter races were the hardest. And guess who usually ended up doing those? All right, I haven't really described how indoor track went on a daily basis for me. So every afternoon in the winter, we'd all gather in a really stuffy gym, and some people, usually the girls for some reason, would blast music on a speaker. The playlist would usually consist of some really overplayed pop songs, which were popular at the time. I mean, I swear to God, if I have to hear that fucking John Doe song ever again, I'm going to lose my fucking shit. Someone's going to die, and that'll probably be you, dear viewer. That'll be you. So we'd do our warm-ups, some basic stretches and stuff, and the sprinters and most others would stay inside and run laps around the gym. And if distance was lucky, we'd stay in the gym as well. But if Coach was feeling a little extra spicy that day, maybe he got up on the wrong side of the bed, maybe he just had a bad day. Maybe he had to sleep on the couch last night. I don't know. If he was feeling extra spicy that day, he'd throw us out in the harsh, cold winter, even if it was like 15 degrees. I mean, he'd just be like, yeah, run 5 to 6 miles, no big deal. I was pissing ice bricks, my guy. My hands would start glowing. I was like about to regenerate into the next doctor, although this time, even though I was dying, it was more so from the cold than anything. Okay, now meats. Meats were very spicy. No, not those kind of meats. Usually, we'd end up going and spending our whole ass night there. We'd have people on the side just doing their homework, trying to ignore all the screaming from parents who were a little too into it, or the gunshots. Oh, yeah, by the way, did I tell you that when you were up on the line, the referee would blast some loud fake gun or something, and if you were in the first lane, well, you had the advantage in the race. Your ears most definitely did not. There were plenty of times my ears rang. It's called tinnitus because of the gunshot, and that was even when I wasn't in the first lane. I felt like I was in World War II or something. I mean, it might as well have been a war. We were just all sort of surviving there. I mean, it was a time. Trust me. I remember that if we were lucky, sometimes we got to go to an indoor track, which actually had good material. Other than that, hard concrete. I'm looking at you, Andover. There were 4 notable places for meets, and we didn't have home meets since basketball took up the gym, and everyone knows basketball is far more important than track, obviously. So the first place was Andover, which I just mentioned. Now, their track was really strange because you'd think that in races that are only multiples of 100, they'd have a 400, 200, or even 100-meter track, but no, they had to be special. If I remember correctly, their track was some weird shit like 145 meters or something. Could be North Andover. I don't remember. Anyways, I don't know what kind of weed they were smoking when they designed it, but that's how it be. The material their track was made of was also hard as a fucking math exam that you didn't study for except for like 15 minutes before the test. It was really fucking dense. Now, the next place was probably the worst one, in my opinion. You have 145-meter track that has really fucking hard material. How could it get any worse? Oh, trust me, it gets a lot worse. For reference, on a normal track, you turn every fourth of the track, but you have at least some straight sections. Not on this next track. For sake of my privacy, I will refer to this place as Penn Island, and Penn Island only. Now, Penn Island's track was not even a track, nor was it a gym. It was a cafeteria with tiles for the material on the ground. It was actually terrible. Like, my guy, they literally just put tape on the ground and call it a track. Like, what the fuck? Even worse, the reason I mentioned the amount of turns before was because it wasn't even 200 meters. It was only 100 meters. That's the amount of space that Usain Bolt ran most of his races on. But it was going in a circle. In fact, this track was so bad that they literally didn't run the 2-mile races there. Okay, Penn Island, my guy. All right, listen. What are you doing? Fuck you for all my tilted ankles. For distance, it was bad because of the tilted ankles. And for sprinters, it was bad because they couldn't even accelerate at optimal speed. Basically, if you ran here, you were fucked. The third place was the place you hoped to get. And for sake of privacy, again, we'll call this place... all right, let's see here. What is boys' names? What is boys' names? What is girl name? No, I'm black. All right, Jake. Jake it is. Disclaimer. Anyone named Jake out there, I chose this not because I have any affiliation to the name Jake. You were just at the top of the list. So, yeah, you got unlucky, bud. Yeah, so, sorry. All right, we'll call it Jakesville. These guys had 2 indoor tracks within one of their many gyms. They had one that they'd hold the races. Then there was a balcony above the main track where you could warm up. These guys were absolutely cracked, my guy, all right? They were like when you're a level 10, like, okay, it's like when you're a level 10 character in a game and you think you're actually good. But then you realize that there are people out there who are actually level 50. Like, bruh, these dudes were living. You know what I mean? Their track was actually made out of good material. It wasn't some weird random ass number like 145 or 100. 100 is actually a pretty cool number, in my opinion. Jakesville was more like heaven. Maybe it was because they were rich and privileged. Ever think of that one? Okay, finally, the last place. And maybe this deserves its own story. I don't know, but we're gonna include it in here, all right? And I feel comfortable saying this place's actual name because it was just so iconic. If you were ever in around the area where we raced, you know this place. It was the Reggie Lewis Center, or the Reggie for short. Now, this place had a track with a nice material. It was a nice round 200 meters, so that was cool. And this was where all of the biggest meets were held. What's not to love about it? That was a trick question. There are plenty of things not to love. I mean, Christ's sakes, it has its own meme page. Like, goddamn. Anyways, let's go over the conditions. First, you're not allowed to eat. At first glance, I understand this, but then you actually think for a second. What was the point of selling food in the lobby, the place where there are like no tables and where you can't see the races, and yet not allowing people to take it anywhere else? Come on, man. The refs can eat in the stadium. Why can't I? I mean, there was this one time, I wasn't there for it, but I saw video footage and heard about it, where the fire alarm went off. And while everyone had to evacuate, the refs used the fire drill as an excuse to eat the pizza inside. If that ain't the biggest flex, I don't know what is. Secondly, this place was hella stuffy. Like, it had its own scent. You could make marketable candles out of that shit. It was also really dry, so after running, like, any race, your lungs felt like they had just walked across the Sahara. Not you, your lungs. They were really fucking dry. Thirdly, like I said earlier, the large meets were held here. So usually when we were at the Reggie, we were in it for the long haul. I cannot tell you how many Saturdays were spent wasting away in the bleachers at the Reggie. Too many to count. The large meets usually took the majority of the night if they were on a school night, and the majority of the day if they were usually on a weekend. Some nights we didn't even get home until like 12. It was kind of a bro. Finally, because the Reggie usually held large meets, the competition was usually serious. Here you found your anime special boys, your anime rivals, and shonen protagonists. This is where we weeded out the men from the boys. 1 second you're somehow racing against the fair point, the next you're racing against Usain Bolt. Like, somehow you even get lapped in the 100-meter dash. I don't even know how that's possible, but it somehow happens. It wouldn't happen anywhere except the Reggie, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it happened at the Reggie. Don't go to the Reggie. Don't run at the Reggie. Don't think about going to the Reggie. In fact, don't even think about the Reggie, because trust me, you'll regret it. Anyways, I think that just about does it for this video. Now, this was a longer one. Basically, moral of the story is indoor track can be fun, but outdoor track and cross country are far better. And distance, better than sprinting. Not an opinion, just facts. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.